Chelan County Sheriff Brian Burnett joins us today on our recent segment of In Focus. Thanks for joining us.
You bet.
A lot to talk about today. I know that you had a meeting this morning with the Chelan County Board of Commissioners.
Yeah, we do every other week with on Tuesday mornings at 9 o'clock with the Chelan County Commissioners.
What was on the agenda for today?
Well, generally, Steve, I try to give an update on, always give a staffing update, let them know where we're at. And that's from, are we hiring? Where are we at in the process? Are we doing tests? And we might have somebody on light duty, do we have somebody on sick leave that's a little, just extra things
Sure.
that impact to their budget and operations. I like to give an operations update on different things that were going on. Obviously, if there's action items that need to take for budgetary purposes, then we'll talk about those. And then we'll talk about, a lot of different things, our specialty teams, from, again, emergency management to our K-9 program to Marine to our regional SWAT team to the drug task force, anything that's importance of that to talk about, and then obviously finalizing with a budget perspective. A lot of times they have a pretty good feel on our budget because, the second Tuesday of each month, we have what we call a department head meeting. So all of your elected officials and your appointed department heads meet. Auditor gives his budget, financial, forecast, and where we're at, where your department is tracking within your budget for that current date and time on the year, and different things like that. So.
Well, I know that in the past, sheriff's overtime has always been a big issue.
Oh, yeah.
Depending on what time of the year it is. Certainly during the wildfire season, you rack up a lot of overtime. During any emergency, I suppose that's the case. But
yeah, and we have a lot of other overtime, from Memorial Weekend to Oktoberfest, 3 weekends, Christmas lighting in Leavenworth. But those are planned events, so we really know forecasted about what those are going to cost. It's the wildfires, especially on big ones. We've seen in the past. Thank God that we haven't seen those significantly impact us for a couple of years. So very thankful.
Yeah.
Absolutely. But in the past, we've seen where days off have been canceled for 2 or 3 weeks in a row, and you're talking hundreds of thousands of dollars of overtime, and a lot of that is recovered through our federal emergency management program. But at the same time, the county has to pay that money up front, and it could take a year to 18 months later to recover that money.
how does the labor picture look right now at the sheriff's department in terms of the number of deputies you have out there right now?
Okay, budgetary-wise, we're budgeted for 60 commissioned personnel, and in July 1 we actually pick up an additional one, so take us to 61. We're probably facing, I would say, the next 12 to 18 months, probably the largest numbers of commissioned personnel that we need to hire since my tenure as sheriff in the last 9 years.
How would you compare Chelan County with other sheriff's departments around the state in terms of, let's say, the benefits and the and salaries for deputies?
That's a good topic because we're just right now in mediation, and it looks like we're probably going to have an agreement on a contract that will go to the Chelan County Deputy Sheriff's Association members for a vote to the membership, and then we're still working on what we call our non-commissioned contract as well. It's hard because we have to work off of what we call comparables. So the counties look at, when they get into negotiations is commission staff, population, and some other factors in that, and economically to see what we compare, what they could use comparables. The problem is with that is they don't allow us to use cities, even though locally here we compete with Wenatchee Police Department and East Wenatchee Police Department, and traditionally city departments have always paid more when you look in perspective for population size or department personnel numbers of employees. And so it's very hard for us. What the message that I've tried to deliver to the commissioners is we need to be as competitive as we can, and maybe we can't match them and close that gap completely, and maybe we can't use Wenatchee as comparable, but we still have to look at that forecasting down the future to say, are we losing employees to those agencies? And if it is, why are we losing employees? And we haven't lost a lot over the course of time, Steve, but we have lost a few. And and I've talked to some members here, and sometimes it's just things that come up independently on their own life, as like as a breadwinner or whatever situation they are. Maybe it's an employee that's used to be married, and maybe they went through a divorce, and now they're kind of living more as a single parent, and so the dollar is now different. You have two different households, and they're in that. So we've talked to different individuals, say, hey, I need to maybe I need to pick up another $500 to $1,000 a month.
So you're flexible in that.
That's a big thing. That's a big thing. But again, my message to the commissioners would be say, hey, what is it we can do to kind of close that gap? Because one, we don't want to use valued, tenured employees to other agencies if we can, because it's going to cost a lot of money to hire and retrain. And if we lose that person and there's that gap in there, and especially when it looks at patrol shifts, if we're down, are we having to backfill those, and what's that impact to our overtime budget?
Okay. I was going to ask you too, in terms of the labor, where would you like to be in terms of manpower?
Oh, manpower.
Yeah.
I mean, obviously, yeah. You can never have enough employees, right? Because it's the unplanned for, the unpredictables. Last year at this time we had 6, 7, or 8 people either on light duty or sick leave from a personal cause. That's the most I've seen in the last 9 years as sheriff. Now, right now, we just got one that just got released that had been on light duty for a year from a work-related shoulder injury, and is actually going back to patrol on Friday. So there's a big, clap and shout. Yeah. We're all excited about that. But that puts us down. We just have 2 members right now. So you know that you're always floating in that range. You can expect to be 1 or 2 people down. When it starts getting 4, 5, or 6, when you're looking at that, and then if you have unfilled positions. All of those things kind of multiply together, and so we're actually down. We have 5 positions to fill by around July 1st. We have 2 right now. We're going to have 3 more starting July 1st. We have a couple more, I believe, planned retirements. And then there's always the unknown out there. Maybe there's a guy that hasn't told you that he's planning on leaving in the next 6 to 8 months, and maybe he's getting ready to turn his letter of intent to retire. And do we lose any staff members to any other agencies, or somebody just going through a life change and they're moving, and they got some different things going on in their family? So there's always those predictions. So I think the Chelan County Sheriff's Office is predicting that we'll be hiring anywhere probably from 7 to 9 in the next 12 to 18 months.
Well, I know from what I've been reading and seeing on the news from the Puget Sound area that a lot of city police that are pretty much dissatisfied with the way law enforcement is working and the courts are working in Seattle area. Do you see much of that migration, let's say, from the west to the east side?
Now, are we talking about our citizens?
Yeah, well, I'm talking about law enforcement.
Oh, law enforcement.
Yeah.
I'll say our labor pool has definitely changed. Obviously, there's an advantage that we have now through public safety testing is we have access to a lot more candidates, but so does all of the other agencies.
Yeah.
And so, back in the day, in the late, 80s and 90s, when we were testing, you tested and filled out by hand an application to every single agency. Now you do one online, it goes to public safety testing, and that application can be distributed to a dozen or more agencies. And so then you will get called up for an oral interview. So it really, as far as the candidate, I think they have a lot better exposure and chances of putting their resume and their application out there to all the different agencies. At the same time as what we don't see is, where I used to go and test for, when I was trying to get into law enforcement, you'd show up and there'd be 40, 50, 60 people taking that written test all in one location. And there might be, 20 or 30 doing the oral interviews, and then they would rank you and you get put on a list. Now, we're just not seeing those numbers. We're doing 8 to 12 at a time.
Wow.
Because that's what there is, because it's so competitive. As soon as public safety testing releases their new test results, you've got all of these agencies around the state converging in on and singling out the most qualified candidates. So it's very, very competitive.
Very competitive, yeah.
And I see that same thing here. You know, Wenatchee Police, Douglas County, East Wenatchee, we're all competing for that same top applicant. And I think they have some challenges as well. But, you know, talking to our neighbor here, just a couple counties away, Yakima County Sheriff's Office, I want to say that they're budgeted for 55 or 54, and they were like 8 positions down. So I'm feeling pretty good about our current situation. At the same time, as we know we have our work cut out for us to hire and train a large number of individuals that we hope that we are able to actually, and I'll call it, convince to say, why do you want to work? We want those people to want to work here, not just to say, I want to become certified and be a police officer, so I'm willing to go to work for any agency. We're actually trying to create an environment, a culture that people say, I want to come and work for Chelan County Sheriff's Office specifically because, one, they invest in their people, they train, they give them the equipment, they prepare them, and it's a place we want to do. When you lose that pay advantage, that can kind of shrink that gap,
Sure.
and so we need to try to keep that up there as close as we can.
Well, I would think that Chelan
Yeah.
County would be kind of an attractive place to live, you know?
Oh, absolutely. People love to come and live and recreate here. So.
Absolutely. We're talking again with Chelan County Sheriff Brian Burnett today, talking a little bit about some of the labor issues that he deals with on a daily basis. Last week we had some folks with the DOT and with the Transportation Council in. And they were talking about the study that's ongoing relating to the Highway 2 Upper Valley Transportation Study. I think we talked a little bit about that with you here recently, especially as it pertains to festivals and weekend traffic up in the Leavenworth area. Have you had a chance to look at this study and sound off on it?
I have not,
Yeah.
Steve. Obviously, there's challenges for the future ahead. I mean, for how do you get more lanes of travel in, especially going through Leavenworth and in that area, with the festivals the crowd that they draw in, not just seasonally, but around the year. There's some big challenges there for us. Obviously, as population increases and we attract more people and they build more homes, just that impact to the infrastructure in our local highways in itself is going to be an increase. I mean, we're looking at, this proposed build up for Mission Ridge.
Right.
And so I've been recently contacted by the county and from different departments to say, what impact do you believe that's going to be to law enforcement, public safety? And so we actually just pulled up, we pulled up 3 years worth of law calls, which could be a 911 call, it could be a theft, it could be a domestic, all of our accidents and different things for that Mission Ridge area on the top, upper end of that road, and I think we had 184 calls in the last 3 years. But add 800 residents at an estimated population of 2,000 people, the impact to infrastructure, to the roadway, the accidents.
Well, I can tell you, I live on the east side,
Yeah.
and every morning I can look across the river of Squilchuck Road, and there's a steady stream of cars coming down that highway.
It's going to be a big impact. What that really looks like, I don't know, but we're going to work closely with our public works, our county engineer, and different things to try to figure this out and give the best recommendation we can. We know it'll have a financial impact to the county, both positive and negative. You're going to have building and growth. There's tax revenue there. There's property taxes, all of that different stuff. At the same time, what impact does it have on our local government services, specifically for our side of it, the Chelan County Sheriff's Office?
Well, we're nearing the conclusion of our little talk here. I just was curious if there's anything else you'd like to bring up for our listeners today, or our viewers on NCW.
Oh yeah, just a reminder that we kicked off our new Instagram program.
Oh yeah, tell us about that.
So
Adding that to your social media offerings, huh?
Yeah, I mean, I like to stay as far advanced with the technology side of it as we can, but again, I'm pretty limited in my talents and resources. But our Chief of Patrol, Rick Johnson, actually came to us and said, "Hey, I think we ought to do this. Let's kind of start a pilot program." So we met, we got it all set up, and we just kicked off with 6 individuals that could start posting, lifetime stuff. Really, it's designed for is, and we're going to have some events out there. If we go to a graduation, we're going to post that.
Sure.
I attended and spoke at a funeral for retired Yakima County Sheriff Brian Winters, and I posted a photo and a little comment there. But really, what it's designed for is, hey, when there's an accident and we got inclement weather, or there's an emergency, something that the public wants that lifetime information coming at them, that our deputies actually out in the field have that ability to actually get that information into your hands as soon as possible. And because that's really what it is. It's the speed and the specifics of getting accurate information to you as quickly as possible.
Possibility that with the use of social media, we'll see more like cop cam images and that type of stuff, or what?
Well, I think that's a ways out, and obviously we're not doing body cams, obviously, and there's public disclosure and all that. So we'll have to see. And I don't think that Cops Live is beating down the door for Chelan County to make that part of their show. So I need to give you make sure you can find that. And of course, I don't want to make sure I give you the wrong one, but let me look this up here real quick, and we'll give you the handle here to make sure that you can find it if you want to be part of that Instagram.
So you're on Twitter too, aren't you now? Twitter, Facebook. I know you're on Facebook.
We are, and so of course, Steve, you're going to make me put my glasses on here in front of everybody.
Bear with us, folks.
So they can't. My kids joke at me, said you can't make the font big enough on Dad's phone anymore. But yeah, so you just want to go to search Chelan CO as in county, sheriff's office. So that's Chelan CO sheriff's office, and join Instagram and follow us, and we'd love to have you as a follower, because really it's about information sharing. And at the same time, if you know what's going on, you're going to see maybe an event, maybe there's a wanted person, maybe there's an investigation that we're working on and that you've heard about, and you can come back and share some information, because our citizens and the members of this community are really the strength and the backbone of any and all investigations, because you're our eyes and ears. And so as you can give that information back to us, we can do the best and most thorough investigation to solve public safety issues at hand.
Well, as always, I want to thank you for joining us. And again, we'll talk to you next month.
Okay, thanks, Steve.
Sheriff Brian Burnett joining us today on In Focus on NCW Life. I'm Steve Hare.